Is MLS withholding Club World Cup money from players? Attendance surprises across USL2, and the most annoying cliches in sports continue to play out. That and more on Monday's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. The sound of Franz Peckenpower means one thing. You've found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's most favorite country. Coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and anytime on YouTube. I'm Robert Kerr, up from the lower leagues. He's Jason Davis, being beamed down from your satellite radios here on a Monday. How you feeling, sir?
I'm good. I worked this weekend, so I didn't really get a full weekend. You know, there was this game over there in Germany. I don't know if you were aware of that, Rob. I think it was called the Champions
No one watched it.
League Final. I mean, I watched the entire thing because it was my job, and then I talked about it for 2.5 hours, and people were interested. I will say that. I don't know. It's a weird world we live in when Qatari-backed PSG is going to just absolutely destroy Inter Milan in the Champions League final. And you know, we're not a European soccer show. We're an American soccer show, so we'll move on from that. But it was quite the show that the French side put on.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Not the only 5-0 blowout in a continental final, and we will touch on one somewhat closer to home later in the show. If you're watching this and not subscribed, hit the subscribe button now. Help us keep growing this community. The MK Ultra is always welcoming more supporters. You want to take it at another level? Become a member. $3.99 a month will get you access to the Discord, early access to videos, priority commenting, and much more. And you know that you're helping this show become sustainable and grow to the future. And then you can also look up this show on Spotify. We are a video podcast over on Spotify as well now. That will help the show out if you subscribe over there as well. Or if you want just a audio podcast, you can search Morning Kickaround on your favorite podcast platform. You can also support financially outside of those options with coffee.com/Morning Kickaround. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed over there as well. And you can also do one-time donations. That's one of the big differences between the YouTube membership and the coffee is you can do a one-time thing.
We don't want you to end up in one of those weird Rocket Money commercials where they're like, look at all the subscriptions you have. Look at you're spending $800 a month. And you're like, Morning Kickaround. If you don't want to be subscribed every month and you don't want to be in a Rocket Money situation, you can support us one time only.
Yeah, don't fall victim to a condescending advertising front man saying that you're irresponsible with your money. Just do the one time if you're in that sort of a situation. And then the Discord with so much going on internationally and both locally, great threads and channels on the Morning Kickaround Discord. Maybe that's worth the $3.99 all into itself. And if you want to write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com is the way to do that. You ready for some Monday segments, Mr. Davis?
Let's do it. Let's go.
You've got the energy shirt on. Let's bring the energy to long balls here on Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome in Long Ball number 1 here for Monday, June 2nd, the first episode in June for us here. Jason, it was a bit of an MLS versus Liga MX weekend. Saturday saw LAFC beat Club America in the Club World Cup play-in, play-off matchup, which was just a wild scene in general, catching up on the highlights. And then last night, Vancouver didn't do so well, lost 5-0 to Cruz Azul.
So the difference between those two games, the biggest difference, most important difference, Rob, is that I stayed up and watched every second of LAFC Big Club America. I turned off the CONCACAF Champions Cup final after the first goal because I saw the way Cruz Azul scored that goal, and I said, oh, Vancouver's not up for this. This is not going to go well. This is yet another MLS sacrifice in the CONCACAF Champions Cup League final. And here we are. And you know, No one is shocked. No one is surprised, but we are all disappointed. If you are an MLS supporter or you just want to see more competition in this CONCACAF world that we live in.
Yeah, that one was over pretty quick. I tuned in to the Club World Cup final, put it on, and then kind of went around my business, the laundry and the dishes for the end of the night. Tuned back in. I had it in the background and looked back, and it was like 3-4-0 just a few moments later, and knew this. I shouldn't sacrifice any sleep for this one. Unfortunate for Vancouver on such a hot streak, but it seemed like anything that could have gone wrong did. And then they were absent some key players here. I think when I was hearing the rundown of the lineups, hearing Berhalter, and there was another midfielder out, but that was a big part, right?
Yeah, they had issues, that maybe made it tougher for them away from home in Mexico City with the altitude, with everything that comes with playing away in Mexico. It just really is a difficult situation when you go into those environments. However, they made it worse as we look at recent results. This is since 20. I can actually make it so you can see from 2018 to the current day, every CONCACAF Champions League / Cup final. Some of those were two-legged before they went to the one-off the last couple of seasons. And I don't think that benefits Major League Soccer. I mean, you've got to come out as the higher seed in the group phase, in the knockout phase, if you want to win this thing, if you're MLS. Because, again, let's go back to Saturday night in front of what was, I don't know if it was 50-50. There were a lot of LAFC fans, the 32-52 represented, but that other side of the stadium was entirely Club America fans. It was, and they were all given the same T-shirt. So it was a unified block of gold in one end of the stadium in Los Angeles. But LAFC not overawed by the biggest club on the continent in Club America. Not finding themselves. They gave up a penalty kick that Brian Rodriguez, former LAFC player, scored, and then were able to come back, find the 2 goals necessary to get themselves that opportunity to play in the Club World Cup, right? And maybe you want to dismiss that, but those 2 teams cared about that competition, and in their own building, even in front of what was somewhat of a hostile crowd, LAFC held their own. Away from home in Mexico City, at altitude, in that stadium against Cruz Azul, Vancouver wilted. They collapsed. They didn't handle the moment. You can't blame food poisoning the way that Columbus apparently was able to say food poisoning when they lost to Pachuca last year, because Vancouver made it a point to bring their own chef and do all those things. But Vancouver hurt themselves. Not only did Sebastian Berhalter's yellow card suspension really hurt them in midfield, but they chose themselves to play on Wednesday night in Major League Soccer. And they made this big thing about, we play better on short rest. We look at our results, we look at our data, and we say that we think we play better when we put ourselves in that position to have to go from game to training to game. It's the rhythm of the thing. Clearly not. And it may look, again, altitude, but you should know you're walking into that low oxygen environment, Rob. You should know that this is not, you cannot be like, well, yeah, if we play more, somehow we're going to be more ready. We're going to have more energy. Not in Mexico City, you're not. So Vancouver embarrassed, which I think is incredibly disappointing for MLS fans, especially considering Vancouver not only made this run in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, but looks like the best team in Major League Soccer so far.
Yeah, not only that, but to all your points valid, but also they got very unlucky as well. I think it was the 4th or the 5th goal. The Vancouver midfielder tried to turn and just fell over, and then Cruz Azul went down the other end and scored. That has nothing to do with midweek rest or preparation or.
Wait, how do you know that? You said it's bad luck. I mean, look, they were clearly not up for it in general. The very first goal that set the tone for the day was a poor giveaway in midfield, because they're trying to link up, they're trying to play through, but they're not playing sharp, right? And this is what happens to MLS teams when they go to Mexico, Rob. It is a consistent theme. Look at this. I mean, again, Toronto loses in 2 legs in 2018. We have an all-Mexican final in 2019. LAFC loses in that bubble game in Orlando. I don't know if you want to throw that out, but they lose to Tigres in 2020. Monterrey America in a final together. Obviously, Seattle beats Pumas over 2 legs. Of course, they didn't have to play a Mexican team before they got to that, which Vancouver did, so give them credit. We've got León beating LAFC over 2 legs. We obviously have Columbus collapsing against Pachuca last year when we thought they might be the great MLS hope. it is a theme that when teams go to Mexico, and this is why we did think that maybe Vancouver had the recipe. They had the formula to figure this out because they had gone down there and gotten results, not victories, but gotten results. They didn't even show up last night. Didn't even show up.
And complete. I was just like one final note on the first game of the weekend, the successful MLS outing against Club America. I had to double check where that was played. I thought that was in Los Angeles, but with the way the crowd looked and the sounded, it was an incredibly partisan environment. And to your point, it's pretty incredible that they were able to LAFC were able to overcome a deficit in that environment in their own home with that much on the line, showing some superior mettle in that high stakes game, and definitely some juice in there. Both teams cared greatly. Moving on to long ball number 2 here, the rumor of Miami's death, greatly exaggerated. We've spent some time here on the show, and I know plenty of other programs have spent a lot of time saying, are Inter Miami cooked? Are they too old? Can they not do it anymore? This weekend maybe proved otherwise. Columbus didn't have their best day, but I saw them in the reverse fixture a couple weeks ago, and Columbus much stronger there, but over the weekend, 5-1 in favor of the Pink Ones.
Yeah, I don't think it should be overlooked that Columbus really suffered at the back because Patrick Schulte was missing. He was injured.
What a difference.
He's not going to play the Gold Cup, not going to be the Gold Cup roster for the U.S. men's national team. But yeah, I hate to be overly critical of Nicholas Hagen, the Guatemalan goalkeeper who stepped in for Schulte, but he set the tone. He makes the mistake. Was it the second goal? Was the Messi chip? I mean, what are we even doing?
That's the worst player in the whole entire planet to miss kick it to from the goalie. I mean,
yeah, again, I don't know that this is not Miami coming back and showing that they're not dead yet. As you just said, there is probably something to this. I mean, anytime Lionel Messi goes off 2 goals, 2 assists, you're thinking, okay, the engines are going again. Suarez obviously gets a goal, but that looked like a Columbus team with that tone set by the mistake at the back and all of that just wasn't in it. Now, are they bad? Is Columbus bad? No, we don't think they're bad. Does this prove Miami is going to be contender for MLS Cup title? I think they probably still were, even with the dip in form. I don't think they're 4 goals better than Columbus most days. I think this is an aberration of a match that really, again, will build Inter Miami's confidence. We'll take some heat off of Mascherano and maybe give them some reason to think they can go into the Club World Cup period coming up for them and do something, because they don't want to embarrass themselves there. But it is kind of a weird result.
At the opposite end of the table in Major League Soccer, though, 2 cellar dwellers got a very rare win. And for the LA Galaxy, their first ever win, or first win of the season, they've gone, is this match week 15, 14?
I believe that's their 17th match of the season, and they get their first win.
Victory. So they beat Real Salt Lake 2-0. So Salt Lake, the paper bag award for being the first team to be defeated by LA Galaxy in 2025. And then DC United, you said they got a result as well?
Yeah, they went to Cincinnati and won, which is big. I mean, that is. It doesn't really matter how you do something like that when you're having the season DC United is having. You're like, oh, take 3 points away in Cincinnati? Yes, sir. Let's go. We have been, and we talked about this, I think, last week, the next up potentially to be fired in Major League Soccer in terms of head coaches. And we're not rooting for anybody to lose their job, but I think both Pablo Mastroeni and Troy Lesesne were on our list. Mastroeni didn't help himself with the loss to the Galaxy, the first team to lose to LA in 2025. And Troy Lesesne,
we had him on our list last week of hot seat potentials, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. I just said that. Yeah. And I think Troy Lesesne obviously has helped himself a bit with the victory in Cincinnati. And it doesn't mean that things are all turned around for DC or even for LA, for the Galaxy. We do know that the Galaxy probably aren't good enough this year to make the playoffs. But I guess now, if you're a Galaxy fan, you can dream that you go on this second half run and you just start racking up victories. I do think I got to go back and look at. I saw a stat from a friend of mine, Jeremiah O'Shan. You guys know he covers the Sounders for Sounder at Heart. I think last week I don't know if I saved the post on Blue Sky, but he shared something about a number that said basically if even if the Galaxy win out this year, they can't get it was something about they can't get to their point total from last year, even if they win out the rest of the season. Like that's how far gone this year is for 2025 for the LA Galaxy. But
Should
again,
we take a wager on do they make the playoffs? Like 17 games in after their first win, do they go on some run and like make an eighth
we'd have
spot
to we really would have to check the permutations on that, like to see if it's even possible based on where other things are in the conference. It would be an incredible story. It would be weird. Not sure it would reflect all that well on MLS, but it would be an incredible story if somehow they managed to do something like that. Here it is. The Galaxy would win every single game from now until the end of the season, would still finish with fewer wins than they had all of last year. Even if they won every game from now to the end of the season, they would finish with fewer wins than they had in 2024. And obviously, they were a champion last year. Not first place in the I think they missed out by what? They missed out by
like
a
1
goal
point or
difference.
goal difference. It came down to
Goal
the final
difference.
day.
Yeah, it was goal difference. Yeah, pretty incredible.
And then, in the East, a rare 2-1 win for DC United. Gabriel Pirani and William Connor Antley getting on the score sheet for DC United. Not players I'm overly familiar with. Not Christian Benteke or anyone leading the front line.
I believe Benteke's hurt right now. So again, more of a reason to give credit to DC United for pulling off something that is difficult, which is to go away and beat one of the best teams in the league. Cincinnati's one of the best teams in the league. I mean, I don't think anybody really has any doubts about saying that. So for DC, could be massive. Could be massive. We shall see.
Big weekend for the cellar dwellers. Bad weekend for Ohio teams. Columbus and Cincinnati both going down. And my friends that in the Columbus Crew world, apparently every time that Nicholas Hagen doesn't make a starting lineup for goalkeeper for Columbus, the Guatemalans come hard into the chat. And so it'll be interesting now that he did get his shot and it went so poorly. I'm curious what the Guatemalan voices in the Crew world will sound like. We'll see if they're a bit tempered. It's a
big Guatemalan community in my area. Actually, maybe I should go do some polling on how they feel about
Man on the street. What do you think about Hagen's performance for Columbus?
Pretty sure I have Guatemalan neighbors, maybe a block over. Right? I should go knock on the door and see what's going on with Nicholas. I don't know if it's Hagen, because in Spanish, of course, you don't usually say the H. You say it's a silent thing. Is it Agan? Agan? I don't know. Maybe it is Hagen. Maybe he's gringo somewhere. Go ahead.
One of the things that we've learned each other in this remote relationship we've had, your Spanish pronunciation is probably I'd go to if we're on a 50-50 on which way to go. I'd go with yours.
I mean, but in this case, I'm very doubtful of my pronunciation. So I don't want and maybe Crew fans would know better. Andrew Johnson is in the chat, and he says that they know that he's bad, right? Spencer Doherty. Schulte was injured, and Crew fans knew the backup goalkeeper is not good at all. If Schulte plays this game, the Crew win 3-2. That is Spencer's opinion. So that's a pretty strong statement that it's the goalkeeper might have been the problem down in South Florida.
Yeah, fans want Schulte back. Moving on to long ball number 3 here for Monday, June 2nd. Seattle Sounders protesting Major League Soccer over Club World Cup pay, saying that they do not agree with the compensation agreed for the players for the participating players in the Club World Cup. And last night in the evening, the Major League Soccer Players Association put out a public notice supporting the Seattle protest.
Yeah, here's a statement from the MLSPA. They stand united with the Seattle Sounders players who demanded a fair share of FIFA Club World Cup prize money. By the way, the club blindsided by this. They didn't know it was coming. Here's what the PA says. The new tournament piles onto the players' ever-increasing workload without regard to the physical well-being. In order to seize this additional calendar territory, FIFA had to commit historic amounts of prize money to secure club and player participation, basically buying their way into this tournament, right?
Sure did, yep.
And FIFA putting it on. As a result, MLS will receive an unprecedented financial windfall. Despite this windfall, the league has refused to allocate a fair percentage of those funds to the players themselves. For months, the players have privately and respectfully invited the league to discuss bonus terms, yet MLS has failed to bring forward a reasonable proposal. Instead of recognizing the players who have brought MLS to the global stage, the league, which routinely asks the PA to deviate from the CBA, that's a major part of this, right, is clinging to an out-of-date CBA provision and ignoring long-standing international standards on what players typically receive from FIFA prize money in global competition. I have seen that Jeremiah O'Shan, again, a reference to the Sounder at Heart coverage of the Sounders, best in the game, he was saying that not only was the club blindsided, but there was apparently an offer incoming, that the players were going to be presented with a new offer in regards to the prize money for the Club World Cup, but the players didn't know it was coming, had not heard anything, had asked for an update, had not gotten one, had gotten radio silence, and then decided to go and make the protest, as you see here, with these t-shirts that have Mr. Monopoly. Is that his name, Mr. Monopoly? I
Yep.
don't remember his name. Okay.
I'm not sure if it's official, but it might double as Uncle Pennybags.
Uncle Pennybags. I think that sounds right. I think that's better. So that's what they did. We do have Stephen Bank, who was a law professor at UCLA, who added some context to this as well, because he, of course, knows these things.
Yeah.
CBAs, which are often written to last for years, and this one in the case of MLS and their Players Association is 6 years. That's a very long CBA. Can quickly be outdated. No idea whether significant prize money was unanticipated, the subject of heavy negotiation, or dismissed as low probability. But it's an example where term sheets alone can miss key details. And this is Stephen pushing back against the MLSPA a bit. Contrary to what the MLSPA asserts, the provision isn't out of date unless they are arguing that 50% is not the right percentage. And I will pull up this section you can kind of see it there. Maybe I don't need to highlight it, but there's a section in the CBA that James Knowlton posted that says if an MLS team or MLS receives prize money by virtue of the team's performance and or participation in a compulsory tournament, that's what this would be. So it mentions ones that are not involved in this, like the Open Cup and the Canadian Championship, but things like this, if the team or MLS receives prize money, 50% of such prize money up to a maximum payment to the players collectively of $1 million per tournament. So again, this is sort of like there's a lot of money coming in. There's only so much that is allocated to the players. The MLSPA is saying this is an out-of-date part of the CBA. And Stephen Bank is saying, well, not really. You said they could have addressed increased prize money with some kind of escalation clause. So what he's saying is maybe the MLSPA was asleep at the wheel here and could have gone back and said, oh, you're going to put teams in the Club World Cup and lots of money coming in. And we noted that in the CBA, it says that the maximum of $1 million goes to a team per tournament. Well, then we want to escalate this because we know you're getting more money there. We would like to have an addendum to this. Or we would put originally when they had negotiated the CBA, obviously, that's when they would have to have done that. They would have to have said, if there's some other thing that goes beyond, like if the money gets really big, we don't want to be locked out of getting that money. So let's have an escalation clause. Maybe this is on the MLSPA, right? So this gets into that thing of what feels fair, Rob, versus what is sort of down on paper and in writing.
Yeah. I love when we bring in Stephen Bank. He's so articulate and really knows this stuff that's kind of beyond our scope of knowledge. And with the nature of American soccer and kind of the wild west nature, we have to reference him a lot. And it is a little disappointing. I think he's calling it out. I'm pro-labor in general, and players asking to do more things should be compensated more. But then you're like, well, he comes in with the well, actually here. The annoying well, actually. He's like, well, actually, you signed this thing that doesn't allow for that at all.
Well, so again, you get into a question of whether or not the PA, obviously they were aware of, I'm assuming they were aware of this, right? That the Sounder players were going to make a statement via these t-shirts, some sort of protest. And maybe the PA said, look, unfortunately, our CBA language locks us out of this extra money, but we can't apply pressure. Like we can do this publicly in a way, because MLS, and again, what the PA stated in their statement was MLS has asked us to that's why I violate. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. One of the most interesting parts is saying that the league comes at them to ratify or deviate is the word from the original CBA, but it seems like it's not reciprocal in this case.
Yeah, but that's again, this MLSPA statement is one side. It's he said, and obviously Major League Soccer is the other side. It's another he said, right? It is you're going to have to make a choice as to who you want to believe is in the right here, because I don't think it comes down to the details. Like, I don't think either side can rest solely on the details of this and say, well, that's why we're right and they're wrong. Because again, the CBA says 50% up to $1 million. It's right there in black and white. The MLSPA wants to paint that as out of date. And really, it's just that you signed a CBA for 6 years and you chose those terms, right? The players didn't have to go in and sign a 6-year CBA. They could have said 3 years because we might want to renegotiate, or the money might change, or the TV deal might change, or whatever it is. That those terms are one of the points of negotiation when you go into these collective bargaining situations. And they painted themselves in a corner. And so what is their option here? To say, well, I guess we screwed up, no access to that money, or, hey, everything is changing, everything is moving, we don't think this is just and right. Let's have the players apply pressure to Major League Soccer and force MLS to respond and, quote unquote, do the right thing, deviating from the CBA, even though by the agreement, MLS doesn't have to do that.
I wonder if the hashtag that they put on this announcement, the MLSPA, was fair share now. I'm curious to see if that's going to be something that, catches on and, or quote unquote, goes viral. Will this spread? Will that spread the message like a la Save the Crew? Will people be as invested? So, any sort of word? I mean, I understand that's a high bar because that's like unprecedented, like supporter movement. But is this going to, do you think this pressure will escalate?
It's a good question. I think it's a really tough sell for the players. And unlike some other sports, these guys are not multimillionaires. They're not getting, their salaries aren't crazy, out of touch with the rest of us. Some of them are making very good livings. Like, they're making 6 figures and more. I get it. But they're not they're not basketball players, guys who play 10 minutes a game getting $30 million a year. That's not what this is. But it still feels they're still removed, and it's still not, I don't know. The Save the Crew thing was about the club and the spirit and the community around that. This is really about just getting the players paid more. And as much as I'm sure there are Sounders fans who are pro labor, pro union, pro supporting movements like this, it seems like to me this would be a tough sell psychologically to kind of get full support around, give those guys more money. Like, that's a tough one, Rob.
Yeah, definitely. Not apples to apples there. I am curious though if this kind of pressure could find some change at all. And then also, will this make the relationship between the Players Association and the league more fraught, because the PA has been accused of being a little too friendly with the league in the past?
I mean, that goes in waves. That bounces back and forth. I mean, again, when they get together around a bargaining table and they agree to certain things and it's for the good of the game, it's all kumbaya and look at what we did together. I mean, I do think that, there was no collective bargaining agreement for a very long time. We finally got one. MLS was holding back on allowing free agency even within the league, like all these things, right? Those have slowly unpacked, and we're starting to see that progress, but it's been a slog for the MLSPA. There will be some, there will be some heated exchanges. We were not that far away from a lockout last time around, if I remember my collective bargaining history correctly. That saber rattling is going to happen. I do think that more than sort of like, will this rally fans around the team, and will this create some sort of public movement, pay their fair share, et cetera, et cetera. What I would say is that Major League Soccer's biggest risk here is that they look like they're not giving players their fair share when you want to be recruiting internationally, when you want your best American players to stick around for a while. So if you have a reputation, and Major League Soccer has obviously had to push back against this, and part of this is the roster building and the rules around it and the limits on what you can spend, and the MLS already has that, which they baked in for parity purposes. So you constantly have to worry about, like, are we an attractive league for players? Like, do we pay enough, basically? And if you're not going to be the Premier League, what is your level? But I don't think you want to be looking like your skinflint here, or that you're not willing to pay players what they are owed, I guess, through performance, through making something like a Club World Cup. And if everybody else, and if teams from other leagues that are on the same level MLS are coming to this competition this summer, Rob, and those players are making much more in bonuses from the Club World Cup, that looks bad for MLS.
If you're watching this video and you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. Don't get spammed or anything, and it helps this show become sustainable and grow to the heights that we are trying to bring it to. You can take it a step farther. $3.99 a month for the membership gets you into the Discord, gets you early access to videos, and much, much more. Even some bonus content thrown in the mix. You can also support outside of the YouTube sphere, coffee.com/morning kickaround. You can do a one-time or a regularly occurring donation. Thank you to everyone who has done so already. You can find us on the socials, X, Instagram, Blue Sky, and we go by the handle of mkickaround. You can also write us a note on the emails, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And you can also find us as a podcast on your favorite audio platform and in video version on Spotify. Just remember to look up Morning Kickaround. We're going to take a breath and come right back. I think the Annapolis story was already mentioned in the comments. You're ahead of us already, but we're going to come right back with today's big question here on Morning Kickaround. Big question here on Morning Kickaround. It is June 2nd. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Are there more cities out there ready for pro soccer than we imagined? Some dazzling attendance numbers in Annapolis, Maryland for Annapolis Blues in USL League 2. Also in USL League 2, Amateur League, Las Chupacabras in McKinney, Texas, over 4,000. And there's some other numbers in other cities, but Annapolis, Maryland, McKinney, Texas, pro soccer towns.
Yeah, let me show. This is the video from Annapolis. That's the scoreboard says tonight's attendance 12,853. 12,853. So that's like 4 full games for some USL Pro teams, right? It's pretty close to that.
Yeah,
it's great. Now, there's factors here that I think we have to be aware of. Rob, I mean, USL2 soccer, probably not much of an expensive proposition. You would know better than I do.
I looked up their tickets actually, and the tickets to this game was $17, or for a future single ticket was $17.
$17. That's okay. All right. I mean, there's not a lot of things you can do on a Saturday in late May for $17. Get you outside. I mean, the weather. So Annapolis is not too far from where I sit right now. And what is weird right now is that we are okay. The Mid-Atlantic region, DC, just like a lot of the South, can be very hot and humid in the summer. And usually we get like 3 weeks of spring in like early May or late April, early May. And then we go straight into the humid period, straight into like 90 degrees, incredibly muggy. You walk outside and you're drenched with sweat. Right now, like I woke up today and it was 59 degrees outside. Like it was 70 yesterday. I went out and took the family down to Old Town Alexandria. My little one was kicking a ball around with some temporary friends in a little open space, and it was like 70 degrees. So it was beautiful. I don't know if that has anything to do with the attendance numbers, but if it's 90 degrees, you might not be willing to go out and sit outside in the open air, the uncovered stadium there in Annapolis, Maryland. I do think this is clearly successful marketing. This is clearly circumstantial to Annapolis, which, especially this time of year, doesn't have a ton going on. It's the home of the Naval Academy. There is stuff to do. You can go down to the water, obviously. You can go pick crabs and all this stuff. But it's, in terms of sort of this kind of stuff, I don't think there's a lot. You can drive to Baltimore, you can drive to DC, but if you're in Annapolis, why wouldn't you go support the team? The Annapolis Blues are right here. There are guys and all of that stuff. I do think this shows that there's an appetite for soccer. Oh, and by the way, you mentioned this too. 12,000 came out to watch the men's team, and then we ended up with 7,000 came out to watch the women. 7,200 stayed. Was it afterwards? They stayed to watch the women's team.
It was a 5:00 men's kickoff, and I think following it was the USLW side. And this was an attendance record for the USLW.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, Is this unique to Annapolis? We don't know. You mentioned McKinney, Texas. Here's their number, the Chupacabras, which is a strange, I'll be honest, a strange name for the team in McKinney, Texas. I mean, you know what a Chupacabra is. You know what it literally means?
To be honest, I don't.
Okay,
Is
so
it like is it like a boogeyman sort of a thing?
Yeah, it's like a creature. My understanding is this originated in Puerto Rico, but I might be wrong about that. But Chupacabra literally means goat sucker, because the story is
Oh,
that
yeah. Okay.
it goes inside and like eats the insides out and leaves like just the skin of the animal. It's horrifying, honestly. The cryptozoology thing is horrifying. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Almost 4,200 fans for lower division soccer in America. Second, amateur, USL2, same thing as Annapolis. So again, Annapolis ready for professional team, Rob? Is that something we can say? Or is that like, let it bubble a little bit, let it cook, let it do this, a la Detroit City? I mean, obviously that's a much bigger metropolitan area to draw from than Annapolis, but is there something to like, let's not get ahead of ourselves? Or is this strike while the iron is hot? Let's get these guys to go invest in professional soccer, because what we want to do is dot the map with successful teams like Annapolis so that there is no longer an argument against promotion or relegation in this country.
Well, Marcus in the chat says this isn't a rarity. They've been getting an average of 10,000 for the last few years over there.
I like how he threw a dollar sign on there. On average of 10,000. I don't think that's what he meant, but 10,000. Yeah, they've been doing that. They have been doing it. And yes, Michael Hitchcock is involved. That's, I believe that he's saying that McKinney has a connection there. We do know, and we found this out, right, that there is another team in Lubbock, Texas, that is owned by the same people that own the Annapolis team. I mean, okay, Kyle Beckerman's a Maryland guy. He's invested in the Annapolis team. But there is a group, and Rob, what does this say? Pro Rel Soccer Ventures. Literally, Pro Rel is their name. They're invested in that Lubbock Matadors team that plays in the NPSL, and I just checked their attendance, and they had, 6,000? Is that what we saw? 6,200 people went out and watched an NPSL game just like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago.
So, so for clarity, the Chupacabras isn't connected. It's the Lubbock and Annapolis are connected.
Well, I think that Marcus is saying that McKinney may be connected to Annapolis. I have not verified that. We do know Lubbock and Annapolis have ownership, similar ownership or related ownership. Again, people want to jump immediately, and I think our people, our ultras want to do this. We want to jump immediately to, oh, they've got that many people, pro team, boom, do it, go. And I would love to talk to some of the guys behind some of the people behind these teams to get a sense of that. Like, what is your idea on how to grow this so you don't get out over your skis and lose the momentum? And also, like, how are they doing it? And how can it be replicated? Because this is what we need everywhere.
Yeah, I was going to say that we might need to do a case study of how did they promote these teams to get thousands and thousands of fans in there, because someone who has promoted a USL team and has been adjacent to DCFC, going from an amateur team to a professional team. I mean, Detroit did wonderful things. They started a team within a community that already existed. Is that what these teams have done? What was this base in Annapolis that they are drawing from to draw these? Is there a lot of universities that are already there? Are they getting all like the military families to come out there? Like, usually typically successful, immediate success in attendance numbers are usually connected to marketing and drawing from within a group that already exists. And what that is, I think, might need to be studied. But Detroit, they were an amateur side for 7-8 years before the professional thing. At least 7 years before the professional thing became like, this is the next step. And then maybe, like you were saying, is it jumping the gun to go Annapolis, boom, 3 years, good attendance, you're a pro? But will those people, are they getting that condensed attendance because it's only like 6 or 7 home games a year and everyone that would ever go is going to that limited amount of dates? And Detroit too, like for a while there's like, they went from 8 home games a season to about, what's a USL length of a season, 34. So they doubled, tripled their amount of home games. And I know that like bringing the energy that would be brought to 6-7 games is a lot different than the energy you bring to like a 25 game home calendar.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you point out something important here. Like if it's a short season summer team, is that core to the identity of the club and therefore core to the selling of the club to the people who might come out and watch a game? I that I don't have an answer to that. It's a reasonable question to ask. I don't have an answer to that. And it, going from high amateur USL where you've got a bunch of college kids and you're running out, maybe you've got it depends on the league, but maybe you're running out a couple of former pros just to mix in some experience, and nobody's getting paid a lot of money. If anything, they're getting stipends, maybe they're getting housing. I know Detroit City used to put their kids that were playing for them during their short season era in a little dorm area, a little dorm, the thing that they had. That those costs are significantly different than running a professional organization. When you have league fees, when you have marketing goes crazy when you get to that level, and you're paying professional staff to run everything.
That's a big chunk. Yeah, I mean, player salaries, going from zero and just like, obviously, summer league teams, they're accommodating their players. They're getting them, making them comfortable, getting them training, getting them fed, if they're housing them through the season. But that's completely different than a 50, what entry level would be at least like a $50,000 salary, something like that. If you're doing that for a dozen people, that's huge.
And I'm wondering, we as soccer fans in this country are so desperate to take the next step, whatever that is. Maybe if we don't even kind of conceive of what that looks like, we want to take the next step. And now that USL has dropped this pro rel plan on us, and that they're going to launch a first division league under US soccer's professional league standards, because all this stuff seems to be lining up. And I think even before that news was out, even before USL took those big steps forward, we wanted to see these kinds of stories blow up, because it's a proof of concept that we can get where a lot of us want to be, which again is an interconnected pyramid across our vast country, with leagues and teams. And while I don't know that it's necessary for Annapolis to be playing in the top division of American soccer one day, just the idea that they could build something where that city has their own particular community team and can live and die year to year with their travails, trying to do what English clubs do when they're small and go up to the second division. And it's this huge, that we want that for us, right? We see what England has and what some of these other countries have, and we want that for us. And Annapolis feels, and in particular because they're proving it with their attendance, they feel like a place where, okay, that they need to be part of this thing we want. And I don't know, Rob, and maybe Oakland County is a good way to think about this, because you know that club, and maybe Detroit City is obviously on the other end of the spectrum, but does everybody involved want that? Does not just ownership, right? And again, Detroit City is a particular set of circumstances, but do you, not just the owners, but do the fans, do the people who attach themselves to these teams, do the community want that?
That's a good question. I'm sure it's something individual to the individuals involved, the clubs. Like what would, so I know that with DCFC, when they went the amateur to pro jump, I do know that some of the fans that like to act in a very expressive way that doesn't necessarily go along with like Major League Soccer or professional crowds. And I know some people were turned off the fact that like there was going to be rules now, and some of the things that really were fan favorite activities to do at games got restricted. So I know there's some people that had mixed misgivings about that. And then just from a business perspective, some people were surprised they made that jump, because like they were, big fish, small pond. They could, they were the beasts of the NPSL and then NISA. So, should they, rock the boat when they're doing so well in that period?
Yeah, winning and losing is much more important when you're a professional team than it is when you're an amateur team. It's not that the Annapolis Blues go out and it doesn't matter if they win. They want to win, right? But that's also a developmental level of soccer in America. And those kids, those college players who are maybe trying to be pros one day, that's not their end. They're not getting to Annapolis and like, I made it. No, that's a stepping stone. So when you now and now when you, in order to sell because this is decoupled from their results. 12,000 people going out to watch them play on a Saturday night on a beautiful day on the bay in Maryland is not about whether Annapolis is going to win a championship or they're going to compete for a title or they're going to be good or they play entertaining soccer even. But when you're professional, it all becomes about all of that. Like now winning is a major driver of whether you are successful as a business. And that changes a lot of that, the formula of how you're going to operate. I think that's interesting.
And great quote at the bottom of the screen. You play to win the game. That's become a cliche, and it's all right. We're going to get to cliches here in a moment or so, but it is interesting. Great to see, people enjoying soccer across the country, regardless of what the future may bring. Great weekend to see everyone out taking in the game. And just one last point on the USL2 and all that. Yeah, it's like, are you, for players, becoming like, is this an attractive stepping stone or is this my destination? Like the Flint City Bucks, very dominant in the USL2, but an amazing stepping stone. Countless players have gone pro from there, but do they have the same draw if that is the destination? We'll see. If you're watching this now and you haven't hit subscribe yet, what's holding you back? Do so now. And if you've already done so, tell your family and friends. Word of mouth at this stage, hugely important. So if you enjoy the program, tell some folks about it. Maybe hit that share button, throw it in your group chats, and we'll bring some more folks into the MK Ultra fold. Take it a next step further and get a membership on YouTube. $3.99, and it gets you access to the Discord, early access to videos, priority commenting, and early access to videos, and much more. And then also, if you don't want to subscribe for a monthly thing, you can go to coffee.com/morningkickaround for a one-time donation. You can pick your amount, you can pick your frequency, and so you can do that as well. Coffee.com/morningkickaround. And we are also a podcast. Check us out on your favorite audio platform. Just search Morning Kickaround, and note that on Spotify, you can watch us in video format there as well. All right, I think we're going to head into our final segment of our Monday edition of Morning Kickaround. We're coming back, talk cliches on American Soccer is Weird here on Morning Kickaround. All right, American Soccer is Weird here on Morning Kickaround. My name is Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. And part of this segment, I'll preface it. I wanted to talk about what I know, and I wanted a bit of a vent session Saturday, a game that presented far too many annoying sports cliches. There was a bit of a Mount Rushmore in the game. I was doing play-by-play commentary for my team, Oakland County Football Club. And some of the triumvirate of the most annoying cliches were mentioned and ended up coming true. So I'll say I really get annoyed. I rolled my eyes when my color commentator, Brooks Lambier, former fill-in guest here on the show, when Oakland County FC went up 2 goals and ended up losing 3-2 in this game, for context, which was brutal. So halftime, 2-0, yeah. The hometown team, Oakland County, leading 2-0 at the half. And my color commentator says, 2-goal lead, most dangerously in soccer. And I rolled my eyes like, get out of here. OCFC is so dominant. There's no way that could be a thing because, but before halftime could have been 4-5-0 for my side. And then the second of the triumvirate of cliches popped up, a game of 2 halves. So what looked so bright in the first half became a nightmare in the second.
I think you're like, it feels as though, and maybe the chat can tell me if I'm wrong. Ultras, I don't know. I'm just not trying to set myself up against Robert in this situation, but I'm observing off of his discussion here about cliche. What you're bitching about is life happening, right? You're just bitching like things happen. This is okay. Brooks Lambier saying that 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football. That could be annoying. I get it. And obviously, if you're a superstitious person, you could argue that it's Brooks's fault that Oakland County ultimately lost the game because he invoked the wrath of the soccer gods by pointing to that.
And I'll say another cliche, a curse of the commentator is very real. And from amateur all the way up to professionals, it happens all the time. A couple weeks ago in a Flint Bucks, the commentators were going on and on about how great the goalies were. What happened next? Goalie mistake.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is confirmation bias at play, right? Like you only feel like these
Here we
things.
go.
Well, okay. I mean, you said this before the show that these cliches exist for a reason, and there's Daniel saying that too, right? These cliches exist for a reason. 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer, or a game of two halves. A game of two halves is just an observation that sometimes a game is different in the first half than it is in the second half because somebody
Yeah.
makes an adjustment or whatever. That one team gets motivated to come out and play better or whatever it is. Like something happens, it changes the complexion of the game. That's just an observation. And that's an observation that is occasional. Lots of games look the same from first half to the second half. That game last night in Mexico City between Cruz Azul and Vancouver, it wasn't a game of two halves. That's a game of a really bad half and then also another bad half for Vancouver Whitecaps.
That's true.
So you are saying these cliches are so annoying, but they don't happen all the time. I mean, I know again they're cliches for a reason. They happen enough that we have noted them. But if your team did win 2-0, 5-0, you wouldn't be coming in here talking about cliches today.
I would
right?
say soccer's awesome today. I would be my hair would be out here if we had won that the way we should have.
Instead of this way, it would be this way.
Instead of doing that, I don't know. I missed my haircut appointment and I'm too busy to make another one, so it's a bit of a mess. But yeah, I mean, but one of the things that's unifying about these cliches, not to be completely negative on this, is it affects from the lowest of amateur levels, and it happens at the highest level of play as well. I mean, not to be, I'm not throw shade at you, but I'm sure Fulham blew at least 1-2 goal lead this season, right?
I don't recall. I don't want to remember that. I don't want to remember that. By the way, there are enough. Okay, there are cliches in sports. Let's just say that in the general sense, there are cliches in sports, but there are enough cliches in our game, in our particular love, which is soccer/football, that this guy Adam Hurry created a whole brand around football cliches. His handle on social media is football cliches, and he writes for The Athletic now, and he built that off of the back of talking about cliches, like just the things that happen in football that are cliches. And again, you've pointed out two very famous ones. Are there other ones? Are there better examples?
I was going to say one team just wanted it more was another one that came to mind with
Sure.
the slide that happened in the second half.
The other thing is that we as human beings, not being omniscient, don't know why stuff happens sometimes. Like we just don't know, and we all want to pretend like we do, or we want some explanation. We want some way to explain. Our team was up 2-0 in the first half. We're looking great, and we lost the game 3-2. Well, I need to explain that. How do I explain that? Well, 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in soccer. This was a game of two halves. They wanted it more.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I guess that's us rationalizing it, trying to figure it out, make sense of the crazy world, and just make clarity of like a disappointing thing. So I don't know. It was a tough go on Saturday where, the full spectrum of emotions. I think that's what's tough of it too, is like, experiencing emotions is tiring on humans, and going from borderline unbridled joy from one period to an absolute nightmare is exhausting a little bit. And I guess we need to find whatever familiarity, what silver linings we can to try to explain it away. Another ones was the team couldn't handle the visitors' dark arts was one that came up because there was technical dominance and up on top, and then once the game got scrappy and scruffy, it really turned.
You know what? The word naive gets used a lot in our game. People talk about naivete all the time, and we all fall into this. I'm like one of those people. Like, I think of myself as a pretty decent writer. I mean, I'm maybe not as good as I used to be because I've only just got now using the muscle again. Yeah. But you get into this place where you're like, I'm better than the cliche. Like, I'm better than those things. And I've had editors before say, like, you need to take this cliche out. You use this cliche too much, or this. And because what happens is it's not that these aren't true or that there aren't ways to sort of use them legitimately. It is that they become crutches without explanation, or there become ways to talk about the game that don't actually dive into anything. And again, what's fascinating about that for me is that a lot of time we're play acting about knowing. We're play acting about understanding. We're not actually in a position of knowledge. And so cliches become useful in that way. But then somebody says, well, you shouldn't use cliches. That's why, we don't want to use cliches. That's why we call them that. That's why you are sort of ranting against them, because we're supposed to avoid them. But then you lack the means to explain what's going on, because it is most of the time inexplicable.
Inexplicable indeed. And I mean, to be fair, that's why we love this game, or love sports in general, is because you never know what's going to happen until the final whistle. You never know. That's why you play the game. Here's another cliche. That's why you play the game.
That's why you play the game.
Your one team on paper should win, and the other team looks like the big underdog, but you play out the game to see where results will come. Chris hitting us up with some more cliches. He hit the ball too well and turning the game on its head, and gave 110%. Always annoyed Chris. How do you give 110%?
I do. I'm looking at a list. I pulled up a list. This game needs a goal. That's a good one. Like, obvious. Like, what are we talking? What? Yeah, of course.
Sure it does.
Duh. I guess so.
Goals are more fun than no goals. That's for sure.
That's right. Probably first goal wins it. I've been known to say that. I've been known to fall into that trap. Like, first goal wins this game, and then like, oh nope, clearly not. Oh, that I was very wrong. And then you don't remember that you said it. You're like, oh, we moved past that. Like, you just throw these out so that you can like frame up the game in a way again that sort of feels like you're saying something important, something insightful, I guess.
I feel like you're really in danger, and cliches are born and bred in preview content when you're talking about games coming up, that you can really fall into the cliche trap. Because thinking about the UEFA Champions League coverage, that obviously was a 5-0 drubbling PSG over Inter. I remember going into that game, there was a whole segment on one of the major networks saying that this game was going to come down to goalkeeping, and that Donnarumma or Sommer was going to make the critical save that would be the difference between a win or a loss. The game turned out to be 5-0, and obviously people trying to speak from positions of knowledge, but they're just guessing.
Well, look, sometimes people who know what they're talking about and know the teams at play will say things that sound like cliches. Like, this game will be won on the flanks. That sounds like a cliche, but sometimes it's true, right? Sometimes it is absolutely a thing. Or this game will be won in transition, is kind of where we are. Where everybody talks about transition all the time, like to the point now where it kind of loses meaning. Of course the game's about transition, right? Of course it is. But you can't talk about the game in a way that it sounds knowledgeable if you don't mention that. We don't accept. I guess what I'm saying is, like, we don't kind of like process this stuff as common knowledge, even though it really is. We feel like we have to continue to go and
reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Go back to that place and use that over and over again. And I don't know. Shout out to your cliches, Rob.
Yeah, and this might be more of a catchphrase than a cliche, but I thought it was interesting that the former United States men's national team head coach Greg Berhalter, he did a bit of influencing with the way coverage was made. He made "we're going to play vertical" a cliche there during the qualifications process.
Verticality. He used the word verticality. That's the one that stuck in everybody's head. He said, "Yeah. I mean, things that I don't know if they're cliche. I guess they are, but like between the lines, talking about playing between the lines,
half spaces has become a thing.
Half spaces all the time. People who want to get real nerdy talk about zone 14 a little bit too much.
That's at the top of the box, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Get stuck in. This is an old fashioned one. Yeah. That's how are they going to win this game? Well, they're going to get stuck in. They're going to win this game. He's going to get stuck in.
And to be fair, in the game, to bring it back to the beginning of the point of the devastating 3-2 loss, was that in the second half, the visitors got stuck in, made it dirty, made it ugly, and they turned the game around.
Yeah, there you go.
With that said, though, if you're watching now, and if you hadn't hit subscribe yet, do so now. Put us a comment, or even roast us. If you watching this haven't hit subscribe, put it in the comments. Why haven't you done so yet? If you want to take it a step farther, you can become a member. $3.99 gets you priority commenting, early access to videos, access to the Discord, which I have really started enjoying all the different threads of local, national, international game. So jump in there, become an MK Ultra. Outside of YouTube, you can support fiscally at coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can do a one-time donation or something regularly occurring. You can find us as a podcast. Search your favorite podcast platform for Morning Kickaround. And shall we kind of guide you towards Spotify, as there's a video version of the show on Spotify now.
Here are ways to help us, to keep us going, to turn us into a something that we want to take it 5 days a week. We want to get Rob a full time on Morning Kickaround. That's kind of the goal of this. Like, I'm doing the radio show. I got a soccer career. We want to get Rob full time. There are levels. You can obviously sign up as a member. That's a little bit of money every single month. It's a recurring situation. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you don't want to forget about a subscription and get on Rocket Money's ads and all those stuff. Then you go to the Ko-Fi page and you can give us a one-time donation and do that. Boom. Hey, I want to give them $5. That's all I got right now, or that's all I can justify. Okay, fine. $5 is great. That's awesome. We would appreciate that 100%. The next level is going over to Spotify and watching the show on Spotify and sharing it on Spotify and rating it on Spotify and doing all those things on Spotify. We're hitting that for a specific reason. That's the biggest return for the show. And then after that is everything else. And again, maybe right after that is tell people about Morning Kickaround. Share it wherever you can. Share it in your group chats. Share it with your soccer friends. Share it on Reddit and X and Blue Sky and Instagram and Snapchat and what else we got out there? Bumble and Tinder. I don't know. Whatever works for you.
Yeah, find your MK Ultra of your dreams on Tinder there. Right? Is that what you're saying?
That's it, sure. Yeah, why not? Why not?
Before we got to that, I was going to say, well said, support the show and all those ways that Jason said, and we'll end the show on a John Madden quote: "To win the game, you have to score more points."
That's right.
We'll be back on Wednesday. Look out for bonus content. And until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer.